Hey guys, LMC here. Welcome to another video, and today we're riding an old 250 single R. So this is an A1 bike, so I've gone down to my friends at A1 in Ringwood and pinched this from them for the morning, and they're letting me have a bit of a tool around on it. So this is a second-hand bike. It's a few years old actually. They don't make this sort of bike anymore. Basically all the manufacturers, Honda included, have kind of moved into the making 300 cc's as their sort of bottom displacement or lowest displacement kind of bikes. But this is a 250. So this is a CBR250 single R. In the kind of classic red, white and blue Honda colours, which I think actually suit it, to be honest. I've seen a lot of the 250 double Rs, like the one I rode last week. I've seen a lot of them in this sort of red, white and blue colour scheme, and I really don't like it. I don't know why, I just don't think the way they did it back then really suited the bike. I much prefer basically all the other colour schemes. But for this one, for some reason, I think it works quite well. I think it probably comes down to the fact that, you know, each sort of piece of the fairing has a different primary colour. So, you know, like the side here is white with a bit of red, but then you've got the front wheel bit is red, and the very front is blue up the top. But no, I think it looks nice on this bike. I don't know why I like it, but I do. But I mean, speaking of the looks, I don't think it looks the best around the front end. I don't like this ginormous single light. Doesn't do it for me. The new ones, the CBR250R, I think looks, 100 times better, to be honest, because it just has a sort of a pair of headlights that look like a pair of eyes at the front. I don't know, I'm not really into the sort of big front and center one on these fully faired bikes. But anyway, last time I took an A1 bike out, I took it out just around side streets, did a bit of commuting on it. I figured since this was more of a sports style of bike, that I'd try and keep it off the boring roads and take it up through some twisties and see how it goes. We'll see how. I mean, I don't exactly know how it'll go. This is a single cylinder after all, so it's not all that powerful, but I'm kind of looking forward to it because I think you're really gonna have to ride this bike. Really gonna have to give it everything it's got to get it up the hill. So we'll see how we go. But come for a ride. Come on, let's go. Alrighty, here we go, guys. Little 250 single R. 250 single R. So the first thing I'll just get straight out of the way. I'll get the elephant out of the room. Out of all the bikes I've ridden so far, I've ridden a few now actually. I've ridden sort of 5 bikes or so in this sort of learner approved category. And out of all of them, this one definitely sounds the worst. I won't kind of beat around that bush. It's not the nicest sounding bike, but well, what can you do? I mean, I'm coming from the 250 double R from last week, and I was so spoiled, totally spoiled by that little bike, that this one just, it doesn't quite do it for me. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll try not to hold that against this bike, huh? We'll just go and have some fun on it. So I suppose the most sensible comparison I can make with this bike, out of the bikes I've ridden so far, is of course the Ninja 300. Now it's it's not the most fair comparison, I'll admit, because really I should be comparing this bike to I should be comparing the Ninja 300 to the CBR250R, the replacement for this bike. But I don't have that yet, so maybe I'll get that next week or something like that, and it'd be cool to do a bit of a shootout between the Ninja 300, this bike, the 250R, and the 300R, see what's different. I mean, the advantage, as a new rider, the advantage of a bike like this is because it is second-hand. This one's done just shy of 10,000 Ks, and in fact, I'm probably going to be the person to put the 10,000th K on it. So it's got to be super cheap. I don't know exactly how much. I didn't ask A1. I keep forgetting to do that. I always forget to ask A1 before I always forget to ask how much their bikes are before I take them off their hands. I really should do that. But I'll ask them when I get back, and I'll stick it up on the screen somewhere here. So I mean, this bike is going to be cheap. So if you're into a bike and you just want to get something cheap to begin with, then buying like the previous model is going to be a great solution for that, obviously. But yeah, so it's kind of a bit unfair to compare this to the 300, but anyway, that's what I'm going to do to start with. So the first thing I noticed is they don't feel any different weight, which is of course fair enough. But it bothers me less this time round, and I really don't know whether the weight bothering me less is because I've, kind of gotten used to the weight of different bikes. I mean, when I first rode the Ninja 300, I was that was kind of the first bike I'd basically ridden that wasn't my bike, if you know what I mean. So it was a massive shock to the system to go from my 500F to the 300 Ninja. But now that I've ridden a few other lighter bikes, like the 250R and also the 400 Super Sport, I kind of am getting a bit more used to the weight of these lighter bikes, and it doesn't bother me as much as it used to when I was riding the Ninja. So, yeah, I mean, I still stand by the things I said on the Ninja, but, maybe I'm just kind of getting used to lighter bikes. So this bike doesn't really feel as intimidating as the Ninja did in terms of not being heavy enough for me. But the engine was definitely nicer in the Ninja than this. I mean, this is a single cylinder, 250 single cylinder, and it doesn't really have much torque at all, actually. I kind of expected maybe it to have a little bit more torque than the Ninja, but honestly it doesn't feel like it does at all. If anything, it feels like this has less torque than the Ninja did. So I expected this bigger single cylinder, I guess, to have more torque than the Ninja's pair of small cylinders, but to be honest, it doesn't. I can't feel any torque increase by only having one cylinder. So I have to, if I comparing the engines, I definitely have to give it to the Ninja. It's just a smoother engine to ride on because it's got two cylinders instead of one. Makes a nicer noise, although the Ninja I rode did have an aftermarket exhaust on it, so that probably has a lot to do with it. But all in all, I think I would say, yeah, the engine in the 300 Ninja was better. As far as the seating position goes, though, I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised to say that this feels much sportier. I think this bike feels a little bit more leant forward. The Ninja has a very upright position, and it's basically, the Ninja has the same bolt upright position as my 500F does, but it kind of just looks like a sports bike, if you know what I mean. Whereas this one feels like Honda's at least tried to give this a bit more of a sporty feel, because it has a bit more of a sporty riding position. And in fact, kind of changing gears for a second, this feels more leant over than the 500R does. So my friend's 500R that I rode, I think it was like a couple of months ago now, and I took it out to get repaired, this feels more leant over than that does. So I don't know if that's true or not, maybe I'm just imagining it, but yeah, that's interesting really. So this feels pretty good, this bike, actually. The position feels pretty good. It's not nearly as crumpled up and hunched over as the 250R I rode last week was. It is still a sort of sport standardy bike rather than that full-on super sport position. But yeah, this bike feels pretty good for the seating position. I'm quite surprised by that, actually. Hey, there's someone on a 250R. Lucky man. So this engine, it gets you up this hill. I know I was hard on it before, giving it a bit of shit for its noise, but it gets you up this hill just fine. Totally gets you up this hill just fine. The cool thing about these bikes, which they are a bit of fun, is because they aren't very powerful. They don't really have all that much to give you. You really have to ride them hard. And I think that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the 250R was that it made such a massive noise, but still didn't, you could have all that noise and all that fun without speeding. I mean, this is the same kind of deal in the sense that you don't get the noise factor. That's the one thing you miss with a bike like this, but you still get that engine that you've really got to wring out in order to kind of have fun up here on these twisting roads. You have to give it the beans, and there's something fun about that, I guess. Because I hear people say all the time that when you have big bikes and you have these big powerful bikes, that you only ever really use like half the engine when you're on the street. You really got to take them to the track to get the best out of them. But the good thing about buying a cheap old bike like this is that you can get everything the engine's got every day, you know. And I mean, I think there's a certain charm about that. I think there's something that's kind of nice about this bike, that, you know, you're pushing it to the limits just taking it out the front door. I think there's something charming about that. Here's the corner where that little 250 Bandit stalled on me. That was right out through this road here. Poor little Bandit. Okay, so I like this bike, but it's really hard for me to rave about this bike. You know, this bike is just kind of, it's good enough, is kind of the way I kind of look at it. It's kind of good enough. If that makes sense to you guys, it's good enough. But it doesn't do anything badly, and it certainly doesn't do anything especially wrong either. You know, it's just that it's just pedestrian. You know, it's in this marketplace, it's just not doing enough to really amaze me. It kind of just does enough to make me think, yeah, it's a good bike, I guess. You know, if you get a second-hand one, I mean, this one has to be second-hand because they don't make them anymore, and you know, you don't pay much for it, and you're new to learning how to ride a bike, like I am, then, you know, this bike's fine. It's totally fine, but it just doesn't do anything that really blows my mind. And I think that, you know, in the Victorian marketplace, where people are on these things for 3 years, you know, they're on their first bike or their restricted bike for 3 years, I just feel like bikes have to do more to impress me now. You know, I feel like this day and age, it has to be a really special little bike to make me want to spend my money on it and keep it for 3 years. And unfortunately, this doesn't really do that for me. It doesn't really do it for me. And maybe I'm asking a lot, you know, maybe a tiny, you know, the smallest displacement bike in Honda's lineup, you know, designed for brand new riders, designed for people to learn on. Maybe I'm being too hard on it. Maybe it shouldn't have to be special. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys think, but I don't know, every bike I've ridden so far has kind of had something about it that kind of really impressed me. And I have yet to find that on this bike. Alright guys, well that's it from me. I'm going to take this little bike back to A1 now and come back up on these twisty roads with my bike, I reckon. Yeah! If you have any questions about the bike at all, hit me up in the comments and I'll let you know what I think. But until then, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys. See ya!